This is your Monday Daily Delivery. I am Michael Rand, Patrick Reusse here with me as well. Got to talk Tony Oliva and Jim Cott elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame here in just a few minutes, Patrick, and also some Gopher volleyball, a little Gopher basketball, maybe a few other things sprinkled in because like we were talking about before we started recording, there is so much stuff going on right now, but we got to start with the Vikings, Patrick. So there's a theory of the universe that suggests that nothing about the past or the future matters to the universe and its state. All that matters is a constantly changing present. That said, Patrick, I think Vikings fans might disagree because everybody I know going into this week was worried about the past influencing how this game against the winless Lions was going to go, and it played out in almost storybook Vikings fashion.
All right, but I would like to refute that whole idea because these are the Lions. Yes, they go to Soldier Field and get beat regularly out in extraordinary circumstances, but not the Lions. The Lions are the reason this has been a successful franchise. Kicking the crap out of the Lions is a fine Viking tradition. Mike Tice and Brad Childress were 16-1 against the Lions, 16-1, and we fired both of them. The Bud is in the Hall of Fame because of the Lions. That's the only reason he's in the Hall of Fame. The Lions. The Lions have been the great cushion from mediocrity that, on those, when they go 10-6 instead of 8-8, it's because of the Lions. And let's put Cameron Dantzler in the all-time Viking what the hell were you doing Hall of Fame. What was he doing on that last play? Where is he going? He looked, I said on Twitter, it looks like he was playing hide and seek. Where the hell is he going?
He had to defend the -15.
Yeah. Whatever that was. You know what we used to 100 years ago, we called that play the button hook. You just run down, turn around, face the so they got to tell us was how about Zim's post game? He wasn't quite sure who was supposed to cover him. He said he didn't know if Xavier was supposed to be there or not. Some quote like that. Well, he had to be turning him loose for somebody, didn't he?
You'd think so. I mean, it's the final play of the game. Like, and you've got the end zone line as your boundary, but so
you should never, even if you have to cover him, if indeed he just stops and then takes off again, you got to be somewhere near him.
Yes,
you got to be near him. You can't just turn around and say, "Well, he might run a fade route here eventually, so I think I'll run back here." It was incredible. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah,
and
you can't get beat with somebody in front of you in that play. It's got if someone catches a touchdown over you, behind you, that's you live with it. It's a great throw, great catch, probably in that scenario because you got you're only rushing 3. You got 8 guys back there. And put him at the 2, put him at the goal line, put him in front of the receiver, and make Jared Goff make a play.
Yes, and that's the size of window that Jared Goff needs that you gave him. 8 feet.
Yes,
10 feet. Otherwise, if there's anyone around there, he's going to screw it up, and you're going to win the game. It was amazing to me that but the whole thing, and Gessling did a good job in his gamer today, the whole thing of letting these guys march down the field, completing one pass after another when they had 3 points the second half, right? They had done nothing. They were terrible. They were trying to sit on the lead the whole half. How come all of a sudden you stop rushing the quarterback and just play? You can't be playing semi-prevent defense in that situation, even if it is the Lions.
No, you can't. If there had been like 45 seconds left when that drive started, maybe there's some logic to that. But there was almost 2 minutes left. Like you can't, even against an awful offense, a winless team.
Yes.
These guys are professionals. Like, they can complete 10-yard passes over the middle and get down into a spot where they can beat you in the end. It was
Yeah,
it was
it was brutal. Is Zim going to be the coach Tuesday?
I mean, it's a short week. It's hard for me.
Yeah, that's true. It's a short week. I never thought of that.
At this point in the season, I think he makes it all the way. It doesn't seem like.
No, I think you're right. I forgot they were playing Thursday. He'll make it to Thursday. If they lose Thursday, he's not going to coach the next game.
I could see that. Because at that point, the season is done. They can't recover from that.
Then you got 10 days. And he looks like a dead man walking to me. That is, his quotes and his, he's some of the stuff. I mean, like, I don't know what the hell they're doing. Basically, he said on that last play when I said, I don't know what they thought they were supposed to be doing. He's obviously, I think he's trying to be vague without lighting somebody up.
Right.
But, in a game like that, the old Zim, this is the new Zim who wants to be nice to people because he thinks that's what the management wants, I guess, or something. The old Zim would have lit up about 3 guys publicly on that last play. So I like the old Zim better.
Yeah. So, let me read you a tweet from Joe Banner, former team president with the Eagles and Browns. He used to work for ESPN. Zimmer goes to prevent defense versus an 0-10 team for half of the last drive and a 3-man rush for the next 5 plays. Guess what? They blew the lead. This against a bad offensive line and a quarterback who can't handle pressure. I don't think the public realizes how many games are decided by coaches.
Take a playcation to Mystic Lake for 24/7 gaming, fun restaurants and bars, and luxurious hotel rooms. And join Club M to bask in the rewards. Follow the lights to Mystic Lake, where every day is play day.
Well, I can't agree. I think Joe summed her up pretty well.
Yeah, I saw that last night. I was like, okay, yeah, that's about it. I don't get it. And on top of that, the reshuffled offensive line. If we can talk about that for a minute. Now I'm not a Rashad Hill apologist in any way. He's not a great tackle, but he's kind of on your roster for a reason, right? He's your swing tackle. He's been okay. And he played half the season there, You thought enough of him 5 years ago to start him in the NFC title game and reshuffle your whole offensive line. They take the weakest link on their offensive line, Oli Udoh, and put him at the premier position on the offensive line. That's their key strategic adjustment when they have one injury. It doesn't make any sense to me.
No, he's getting killed for that too, and I don't blame people. I mean, it's what brain surgeon? Maybe we need the old non-vaxxer Rick Dennison back. Let's say, Zim,
probably.
What happened to the consultant? I don't even know who the offensive coach is, but I don't know. All these guys better be sending down resumes because this coaching staff is done. You know what? And they still aren't out of the playoffs. I mean, if the only team you're fighting for a spot is the Washington football team, they stink. They won again, but they stink. Or did they win? I don't know. Yeah, they're 6-6, right?
Yeah, they played the Raiders. I think they won that game.
Yeah. No, I don't think. Yeah, I don't know how they did. But
San Francisco lost to Seattle. I mean, it's still 9-8. Still probably does it. But this was the one where you're like, okay, beat Detroit, beat Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh looked better yesterday. They beat the Ravens, and the Ravens are the worst, like 9-4 team I've ever seen. By the way.
Oh yeah. Well, the quarterback's playing terrible. Lamar Jackson playing awful. Tyler, I mean, he's Ben. We were all laughing about how rotten Ben was. He was better than this guy.
Yeah.
He's, I heard the broadcasters basically doing a pretty good job on Jackson last night, saying how much his teammates lack confidence in him right now because he makes terrible throws and he doesn't throw to the right guys, and he's all screwed up. Yeah, you're right. And Harbaugh is getting killed for going for 2, but I don't blame him.
I don't blame him. Yeah.
Jackson can maybe take off running and run 2 yards for a touchdown. Anyway, that's beyond the point. They're not.
Washington won 17-15. So yeah, they're 6-6 now.
They're not out of it, but they should be. I mean, that was disgusting, man. Well, what was the first half was disgusting. That's
right.
The end of the game makes it look, makes it look okay. They had the game in hand, and they did. But when you play a first half like that, you're taking chances. Everybody's saying, "Oh, they lost." They lost by one possession 7 times. Well, they deserve to lose by one possession 7 times, except for the one missed field goal by Joseph.
Right.
That one. But it's oh man.
Think about how many.
I mean, Campbell is just sitting there. Now he's calling the plays. He's a dummy. You see him calling the plays. He don't know what the hell he's doing. And they wanted to kick away another one and give it to you, and you wouldn't allow it. It was unbelievable. I don't know what to do.
It was just the end of the first half again was a problem. How many points did they leave on the board yesterday with short field goals and going for couldn't get a 2-point conversion to save their lives.
What card was he reading that he had to keep going for 2?
He was trying to get within a field goal, and then
blah, blah, blah. Just score some points and keep scoring points against those guys. I'll tell you one thing, though. I looked at Gessling. I tweeted this out. I looked at Gessling's gamer last night. I read it. He wrote another fine gamer. He does great gamers.
He does.
But there was 721 comments at whatever time it was, like 11 last night. And I got to admit, for the media, there's nothing better than an embarrassing failure for the local NFL team. People go nuts. We're not unique here, but it is hilarious to me. My friend, our friends, Judd Mackey do their post game YouTube thing now. And I'm sure the same thing at K-Fan. When you lose, you get 6 times as many calls as when you win. It's unbelievable. And especially if you lose. You know what offended me the most about the game?
What?
Cousins running around trying to win the sportsmanship award after the game, shaking hands with every lion he could. Get your head down, run in utter humiliation into the locker room, and don't come out, you fraud. Sportsmanship in that situation, out the window, should be traded in for complete embarrassment.
I agree. They wasted it. Anyway, they wasted Justin Jefferson, 11 catches, 182 yards, and a touchdown. I just feel like, Cousins didn't play great. His final numbers were really good, 30 for 40, 340 yards, 2 touchdowns.
He tried to screw up a few more times, but the Lions wouldn't let him.
I think the overriding thing in this game, though, is I think Zimmer just kind of choked. He didn't. Yeah. I don't think the moves he made, the game-defining moves he made with the offensive line and the defense at the end, those are moves that if he does the right thing or does a thing that's different than what he did, I think they win the game.
And I got news for him. Mark Wilf was getting a visit from Rick Spielman today, trying to save his own job. I'll tell you that. If Zim thinks it's going to be a package deal when the two of them get run out of here, I got news for him. He'll have tread marks on his back from Spielman driving over him it's got a semi, man. Spielman will be stabbing him in the back like unbelievable. Spielman's he's in there trying to save his own. He's been in there trying to save his own job since they were 0-2.
Look at all the young guys that are playing well. Look at all the young guys.
Right. It's not my fault that he just it's time to get a young, dynamic offensive guy in here. Let's get somebody's assistant. Somebody's quarterback coach that's 38 years old or something like that.
That's going to be the move. But the rule of opposites, you always talk about it, but it's right.
That's right. Yeah, hire the opposite. That's for sure. Anyway, quite a loss. That's for sure. Anytime you lose it a Lions. You know who was really shocked that at the end they pulled it out? The Lions.
Yeah, they were. They were like, we did it. Wow.
What? They left this guy open in the end zone and let us win.
Just let him run and turn around and catch the ball. That was all we had to do. If I would have known that, we would have won a whole bunch of other games. If I had known it's going to be that easy.
No, I don't think. Cameron had a chance for an interception too. Earlier in the game. So
no, that's the sum that up. They got. I think I talked about this on Access Vikings last week with Ben and Andrew. Oh, by the way, I got to mention one other thing about that. But I said to them, if they make the playoffs this year, they will have earned it, and if they miss the playoffs this year, they will have earned it based on that schedule, and they are well on their way to earning it. And I was texting with Ben at halftime of that game because I couldn't believe what was going on, and he said they're going to come. He said he thought they were going to come back and win the game, and I said my text to him was 30-27 loss. And if the Lions had to kick the extra point, I would have been spot on. That was at halftime. Right. So
I will say this in their defense: not having Eric Kendricks hurts.
Oh yeah,
he's their best player. He's their best player. If you put everything together, I'd say Jefferson maybe, but he's certainly their best defensive player. So
yeah, missing him certainly a factor. But against the Lions, there's only so much equity you get from that. Patrick, let's talk about
one more thing. Yeah. Harrison Smith's going to be around next year.
That's a good question too.
Are they going to keep paying him, or are they going to? I don't know how much it would cost to get out from under because they just gave him a new deal. But
that's right.
He's not the same either. So.
No, I guess it kind of depends on how much of a house cleaning happens and how much some of that depends on contracts too. What's the dead money situation? I'm sure that'll be a good question for January. Ben's really good at those types of stories as well. I could talk about this game for days, but let's talk about Tony Oliva and Jim Kaat, both getting into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Those were, guys that I did not watch growing up necessarily. I was a little bit before my time, but I certainly know their reputations, and Tony O's brilliance, maybe too short-lived because of injuries. Jim Kaat had the much longer career. From your perspective, what was were you surprised? Were you anticipating this? And then just from what you remember watching of those guys, what stood out to you?
Well, first of all, Rodney, when they put Rodney on the committee, I thought, yeah, good. There's a vote for Tony, and he had 11 last time. And they changed the whole committee, but then Rodney could not be there. He's got a heart transplant. The COVID numbers are soaring. He didn't want to get on a plane. And but they, fortunately for the Twins, they put Bert in as his replacement voter. And I'm sure he was voting in his own
proxy
and also in Rodney's conscience. But that helped. But I can tell you this, no bigger admirer of Jim Kaat than Bert Blyleven. And because he was, the two Dutchmen, man, the veteran Dutchman and the young Dutchman came up in 1970. And, Blyleven just loves Jim Kaat. And of course, we all love Tony Oliva, and then Bert loves Tony Oliva, and Rodney roomed with him for 11 years and was like Tony was his big brother. And I talked to Rodney yesterday, and he was pretty damn emotional because of both of them made it, because they all love Jim Kaat too. But for Tony getting it in, Rodney was just blown away. And Tony, I can say this, we don't have big buddy relationships with athletes, but there's nobody I've ever gotten along better with than Tony Oliva. I admired him. He was my favorite player, and I'm not BSing because I just love the combination of, he hit some home runs, but and he hit 32 as a rookie, but the screaming line drives, and I think he's their better. He and Puck are their best ever all-around hitters, because they could hit it out of the ballpark, and they could hit a screaming line drive anywhere on the field. And just without, I mean, having to, go too crazy here. Just the nicest guy that ever lived. I loved him as a player, and then I got, the only thing better than watching him as a player was getting to meet him, getting to talk to him, spending, whenever I ran into him at the ballpark. My first year on the beat, he was still DH in '74, and he was a coach a long time when I was, he was a coach on the beat, and I got to know him really well. And we actually flew with the Twins back then when I first went on the beat, the sports radio, first 4 years. And I'll tell you one thing, he did not like rocky plane rides. he was not a good he was not a good flyer, that's for sure. But just all the stuff about Tony being a great guy, it's not BS. He's just and it is funny how here's this Cuban kid grew up, wearing shorts and plowing fields and, hitting under a guava tree in Cuba, loved Minnesota. He and his wife had a spot in Miami for a few years, Gordette. And Tony I ran across something I wrote on him a few years ago. And Tony said, after a couple of weeks, we'd say, let's go home, and they come back to Minnesota in the dead of winter, and just a Minnesota through and through. And I mean, you've ran into them at the ballpark. Everybody in Minnesota who's a baseball fan has a photo with Tony Oliva, either from spring training, Target Field, the Metrodome, wherever. If you ran into Tony, you love Tony because he was always had time for people, and he's just a great BSer. He's got a great curiosity about things, and I'm Sydney. The one thing, Sydney's not around anymore, and I never asked him this, but Sydney always called him Mr. America. Was his nickname. He has nicknames for everybody.
Right.
And I don't know, because probably Sydney had a hard time understanding him and couldn't figure out why Tony wasn't speaking the King's English, from there. But that was his nickname to him. And he also accused him of being cheap and having all his money buried in the backyard out there in Bloomington. Sydney would get on him about being the same joke every time he ran into him.
Yeah, that's Sid right there. The same joke every time.
I'm just babbling here, but I love Tony Oliva as a human being. And here's an odd thing. I called up. I was thinking about, I should write a column about him and Gordette, right?
Yeah.
Being married for 53 years and her bringing this black Cuban home to Hitchcock, South Dakota, 50 some years ago. Not a real mecca of interracial marriages, I'm sure. And I called up Anita, the daughter, who's a great gal and a friend of mine. And I said, hey, when's their anniversary date? And I called them. I had no idea. And I called her like on Monday. And she said, Thursday.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So I got on the phone and I turned it around and we had it on the date of their anniversary.
Yeah.
I think, or we might have pushed it back till Sunday, but it was fun writing that column too, because she is just unbelievable. Her love for Tony and her love for Tony's Cuban family. And I can tell you her Spanish is a lot better than Tony's English. That was one thing, but it's a great family, lived in the same house for 50 years out there in Bloomington, and, got more friends than anybody. And if I would have had some ambition, I would have went out there and watched the celebration yesterday. But he's, if you're a Minnesota sports fan of my generation, this is a great day, that's for sure. And Cott, I mean, God love Cott too. The best ever, as good a pitcher as he was, he's a better announcer and should be in the hall. He should have the Ford Frick Award as an announcer.
Yes.
And I had him on the radio as a guest for 5 years, I think. And when I was doing full-time radio, he could not be stumped. There was not a baseball topic he could call up that he didn't have about 3 great stories to tie in for you. Fantastic guy, still golfing. He's 80. He's older than Tony, right? He must be 85, so. Maybe 85. He broke in 59 with the Washington Senators as a kid. He was like 20, 21, but great workhorse, still holds all the Twins records for innings and stuff, which will never be broken in the modern era for sure. No. So, just a horse. And it is funny, isn't it? One guy voted in because of a mercurial 8 years, right?
Right.
And then he ruined his knee, and then the other guy voted in because of his longevity. So it's a mixed bag, but great. I also got a quote from Minnie Minosa that I sent to Howard Sicker, on Minnie Minosa, from Mike Beck. Mike Beck, he sent me a little poem about his dad talking to Minnie when Minnie made it to the Hall of Fame. That was kind of an amazing ride there, that all of a sudden, let's get Minnie in the Hall of Fame, and everybody got on, because he hadn't really been a contender at all, but people started looking at all his generations and his ultimate longevity. And of course, Tony and he were buddies, because Tony was obviously a much younger player, but Minnie was such a legend in Cuba that Tony got to know him and loved him, and so it was a great day for the Tony Oliva, that's for damn sure.
Tony and Jim both 83, by the way.
Really? Wow.
Clarify that piece of it. But yeah, Tony Oliva, like you said, you know him way better than I do, but any interaction I've ever had with him has just been, he's one of those special characters in Minnesota sports. And I'm characters is maybe used in a different ways, but just he's this kind of like this guy that's got this presence about him, and just always very warm, very engaging, he just kind of, when you go into a room, he is the center of attention, not because he's demanding that, people just kind of gravitate towards him.
Yep, he is. He's Gordon in that piece that I wrote says, "Do you ever meet anybody who didn't like Tony?"
Right.
And, no, I haven't. So that's I wrote a thing that's going to be online here pretty minute quote, but I kind of led with something I've always remembered. He's in rookie 1964, and he's got nothing but hits the first 4 games of an odd schedule. They played 1 game in Cleveland, 3 games in Washington, and then they're playing a doubleheader on Sunday in Detroit. They haven't been home yet, and we didn't see many games on TV back then, but that first game of the Sunday was on TV, and you're watching TV, and Phil Reagan was pitching for Detroit. Tony gets a line drive base hit off him in the first inning. Second inning, Reagan tries to kill him. He, throws right at his head. Tony goes sprawling, and a lot of people threw at Tony that year. And because that's what you did if some rookie was hitting too many line drives back through the box, And he's in Detroit, and he gets knocked down. He gets up, he dusts himself off, and about 2 pitches later, he hits the ball over the center fielder's head. 440 feet in Detroit, was center field, and he hits it over and runs out a triple. And I said, as a guy watching TV as a 19-year-old or something, or 18-year-old, I said, oh, this is real here. Because he gets, the guy dusts off, and he follows with a 400-foot rocket over the center fielder's head, dude. He could hit, man. If you did, the people who didn't see him, he could hit. He knocked in 92 runs on one leg in 1973. He couldn't run to first base, but he knocked in 92 or 3 runs. So.
Yeah, he was one of the greats. Too bad injuries shut down the latter half of his career, or at least curtailed his effectiveness. But that's what this committee's for. It's to recognize, those guys who kind of fell through the cracks originally.
Yeah, we have a very tough standard to baseball writers. Getting to 75% is not easy.
No.
And I'm glad this committee exists, because, and I'm glad, in a way, we got some writers are saying, hey, they're voting in guys we only gave 30% to. Well, that's okay. Baseball, one thing baseball is killing its traditions, and one thing it should be trying to sell is it's still got the tradition advantage over all other sports. And to recognize these guys is, go back to 1895 and recognize Bud Fowler. That's fine. Make somebody look up something and see, maybe most of the young sports fans don't want to, but some people might. They learn something, so.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. Patrick, let's hit a few things quick here. Go for football, go into the Guaranteed Rate Bowl, go for basketball. Let's do that in volleyball. We're going to skip the Wild for now, even though they're awfully good.
They're boring.
They're not
boring.
well.
All they do is win. They're boring. I said on Twitter, wake me up when the Western Conference Finals start.
It's a team that looks like it's got a little something going. You just watch them play, and they're fun to watch too.
Oh yes, they're playing up and down. I love this coach who I never heard of, and I thought he was some crusty old guy who would have him trying to beat you 2-1. He wants to beat you 5-3.
Yep.
I like going up and down the ice, but that's my hockey observation. So
yeah.
Let's hit
go for basketball and go for volleyball. I cannot believe Ben Johnson has that. Ben Johnson's got that team 7-0, and that was a legit win
yes,
Sunday.
The other 6 were all explainable. Going on the road to play Mississippi State. Now, I will say it sounded like it was in front of about a screaming crowd of about 1,200.
Yeah, it didn't look like a big crowd when I watched it.
There was no noise. When you can hear the basketball dribbling, it's a small crowd. But when it's hitting the floor. But, I mean, I turned it on. It was 16-2 or something. They jumped them right on the beginning. They played defense. I will give Dave Thorson credit for a lot of that. He won a lot of state titles at De La Salle because they played defense, and they got him playing defense. They only played 7 guys, and they got Jamison Battles, a legit player. Peyton Willis is, this is his 9th season of college basketball. He's getting a little better, and I don't know how they did. Then they got a bunch of poor. The guy I'm worried about is Eric. What are you going to do if Eric Curry, can't withstand the 35 minutes a game because they don't have any bigs at all. But it's fun because Johnson, I don't know him well, but he's always seemed like a great guy. Thorson's a great guy, and let's face it, we thought they'd be 3-4 at this time, and 0-20 in the Big Ten.
I didn't think they'd win 7 games all year, and they're 7-0.
Yeah, it's fun. It's great. I hope some people show up for the Big Ten opener on Wednesday, right? So
we got Michigan and Michigan State coming up here. They'll.
Michigan is not Michigan. Now, I'm not suggesting they're going to beat Michigan. They shouldn't. But Michigan has had a very unimpressive preseason here. They are not nearly as good as they were supposed to. And did you see Juwan? Juwan has got like twice as much gray hair as he had at the start of last season. It's unbelievable what coaching does to people. All of a sudden, he looks like somebody's grandpa. It's
that's funny.
It's funny, but yeah, congratulations to them. And yeah, and I don't know how the Gophers ended up going down to play West Virginia to Phoenix. How did this work out that they fell on the pecking order? What don't they like about us? Didn't the last couple of times we went to bowl games, a lot of people showed up? I don't know. I was surprised they ended up in this nothing. This is the bowl that got Mace fired. Let's remember this. What was it then?
It was the Inside Bowl. Yeah,
Inside. It's 3 different names, I think.
Yeah,
there was another name too. But, that was against Texas Tech with Graham Harrell playing quarterback. That's not who they're going to be playing now. But, yeah, I'm surprised that they fell down to that. I guess maybe, there's a lot of Minnesotans who hang out in Phoenix who might go to the game. But I don't know. The number of Minnesotans who are going to get on a plane at today's current prices and fly to Phoenix to see him play a 6-6 West Virginia team. It's kind of a bummer when you consider that the coming off the Wisconsin win and everything. But Bad losses count too, right? I don't know.
Bowling Green in Illinois. That's
Illinois.
Those didn't end up hurting him necessarily in the Big Ten standings, but they definitely hurt him in the bowl race.
But at least we can hang our hat on the pride of the Big Ten West showing up on Saturday in the Big Ten title game.
42-3.
42-3. The Hawkeyes, God almighty. They're the only team that could win a division title, and their fans got to turn around and say, what happened? We stink.
Right.
Offensively, they're just awful.
Yes.
And they somehow won the Big Ten West. When I was talking to Joe Maturi about the slab of bacon trophy,
right.
He told me how dedicated Delaney was to having balanced divisions. That's why they had the legends and the leaders when they started off.
Yeah.
They ought to go back to the legends and leaders. This is a joke.
It is. It's the inequality, and I think we've talked about this. Like Nebraska has foiled a lot of this.
The failure has been Nebraska. Yes, they were supposed to be a powerhouse, and they ended up 1-8 in the conference.
They're close, though. They're close.
Scott Frost is just a shock. And Frank Solich got fired because he was 9-3. And now they're 3-9, and they can't fire the guy. It's
unbelievable. Well, let's hit go for volleyball quick. They advanced to the Sweet 16, beat Stanford in straight sets. This doesn't look like it's the same Stanford team maybe we're used to seeing, but still, you beat.
Plummer's not walking through the door for them, but that team we saw in 2018 and they won again in 2019, that was a machine. They had a couple of good players, but I was there and it was fairly obvious. It was 16-16, and then the Gophers went on a little run, and it was fairly obvious by early in the second set that it was going to be it was going to take 4 sets at the most. And the Gophers just kept playing better. They really played good, and they didn't have CeCe McGraw playing their defensive player, but that Rachel Kilkelly came in and played a pretty good game and a pretty good match. And this Jenna Wenis, is she good? She was like a hotshot recruit, and didn't play a lot in the last year. I mean, she wasn't like dominant because they had Samity and the other friend, Taylor Landfair. And then this year she started off and she was playing some and, was not playing great. And boy, she ended up being all Big Ten, and I can see why. She is terrific. And this other kid, Ida, they call her, even though it's not spelled like that. Mawabi, the senior, the 5th-year senior from Japan. Mm-hmm. She was terrific on Saturday night too. And that Samity was just good. She wasn't legendary like she can be, but they're pretty good now. Baylor beat them early this season, one of the top teams in the country. And then if they were to win, they probably end up getting Wisconsin on Madison's home court. So the odds are against them. But once again, they're, it's the best program over there as far as excitement's concerned. I mean, you can go with women's hockey, but there's only 40 women's hockey teams in the country, and there's 350 volleyball teams. So I don't think it's comparable. But here's what was funny, Mike. The Stanford coach, Kevin Hambley, who was coached the national championship team, and he was the best man at McCutcheon's wedding.
Okay.
So they're buddies, and they're both tall, guys. Hambley was up and running on the court like on the 4th point of the night, wanting to get a review, and he never sat down. And Hugh McCutcheon, and he called 2 timeouts each set. He called 6 timeouts. Hugh McCutcheon sat in his chair for 3 sets and never called a timeout. I never saw him stand up except when there was a timeout called by the other guy. He's an amazingly cool guy. He would be a guy you'd like to be that cool.
Right. Yeah. But that confident, that just like,
there's no check. And that's you hit it on exactly. He knows he's good.
Yep, he absolutely really does.
It's really a lot of us hope we're good. probably delude ourselves into thinking we're good, but we aren't 100% sure. This guy is 100% sure of his volleyball knowledge, his ability to lead young women into, to make them better and as volleyball players. And he just knows he's good. And it's really and doesn't have to tell anybody how good he is, right? And it's a trait that all of us can be envious of. Damn near all of us can be envious of. But I am always impressed with that guy.
Can you play defensive back? I'm just asking for a friend. Can you play defensive back in the NFL?
He would not have gone in to prevent defense. He would have said, let's, they got a terrible offensive line. Let's keep attacking them. What do you say, fellas? That's what he would have said. Come on, our girls. He would have said, come on, young women, let's go here. Boy, he never a misstep when he's talking about his team either. He'll be critical, but not, real tough. And, he's over there and he doesn't, he's got me in the media and I don't know what the hell I'm asking him, but I enjoy watching it. And he's got Charles Honran from the Spokesman and he's somebody from the Daily, and that's it,
Right.
And then we had Jeff Day there too. And we're all trying to ask fairly knowledgeable questions, but we don't know bleep about what's going on. Right. We don't know anything. So he suffers. He has the quality of suffering fools in a classy style.
Yes, I've always enjoyed dealing with him.
He'll let you know you asked a stupid question, but he doesn't make you feel bad about that, right? He's just a really admirable character.
Agree. Well, we'll see what they can do. Baylor, like you said, tough opponent, and then they had to play probably Wisconsin after that. That regional's in Madison, so we'll see how that shakes out. And we'll see. Vikings short week this week. They play again. Another chance, another bite at that apple right again on Thursday, baby. We'll see how that goes for them
bite
as
at
well.
That rotten, stinking apple that should have been taken off the shelf 3 weeks ago.
That's a good way to put it. Patrick, thanks. We'll do this again next week.
All right. See you. Goodbye.